Welcome back, everyone, to the podcast series When God Appeared in History and What Science Cannot Explain. Today, I want to tell you a truly haunting story, a story that has kept the world debating for over 160 years, and to this day, no one has been able to provide a definitive explanation. A poor young girl living in a damp hut, barely literate, who had never ventured far from her small village. A desolate grotto that villagers rarely visited. A spring that didn't exist before, but just a few days later became a miraculous healing stream, attracting millions of people from over 130 countries. And the most mysterious thing is that the girl, Bernadette Soubirous, claimed to have met a lady appearing in a dazzling light whom no one else could see. What do you think? If you were the girl's parents, would you believe her? If you were the authorities at the time, would you think this was just a figment of her imagination? And if you were standing in a crowd of 10,000 people in 1858, witnessing those born sick walk for the first time, would you think it was a miracle or a coincidence? Today, we delve into Episode 2, Lourdes, the Spring of Faith and Miracles Documented in Medical Records. And if you find this podcast series compelling and worth listening to, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss upcoming episodes. You only need to do it once, and it helps me a lot to continue creating content like this. Now then, let's go back to 1858, a bitterly cold winter afternoon in southern France. To understand the story of Lourdes, we must first know who Bernadette was. Bernadette Soubirous was born on January 7, 1844, in the small town of Lourdes. Her family was so poor that even other poor people pitied them. Her father, Francois, was once the owner of a small flour mill, but after being sued and losing his job, the entire family became destitute, forced to live in an old prison cell. That's right, they lived in a room once used to imprison inmates. Local residents called it La Cachette, the dungeon. No electricity, no light, a year-round smell of dampness and mouse droppings. Bernadette, 14 years old, suffered from asthma, was thin, frail, and her academic performance was nothing remarkable. No one thought this poor girl would become the figure who would draw the church, authorities, doctors, journalists, and thousands of people to a desolate grotto to question her. But everything began on February 11, 1858. That day, Bernadette went to gather firewood with her sister Toinette and friend Jean Abadi. It was so cold that the river water had frozen into chunks. The three girls were about to wade across a small stream near the Massabielle grotto when Bernadette heard a rustling sound, like wind, but not quite like wind. She recounted, "I looked up. A soft white light appeared. In it was a lady. She was indescribably beautiful. Everything around her was bright, but it didn't hurt my eyes." Bernadette described the lady, wearing a white robe, a blue sash belt, a golden rose on each foot, holding a rosary. The strange thing, her sister and friend saw nothing. Initially, Bernadette thought she was hallucinating, but the lady did not speak, only smiled gently, then vanished after just a few minutes. The girl ran home to tell her mother, but Louise, already worn out by poverty, snapped, "Don't talk nonsense, there are no devils there." 2 days later, Bernadette returned to the grotto. The lady appeared again, and this time she gestured for her to come closer. Bernadette recounted, "When I knelt to pray, she also made the sign of the cross, but more beautiful and solemn than anyone I had ever seen." This later caught the attention of theologians, because evil spirits, according to doctrine, cannot make the sign of the cross with the solemnness of a saint. Villagers rush in as rumors spread like wildfire. Lourdes was a small town. A strange rumor spread very quickly, especially when the subject was a gentle, poor girl. In subsequent apparitions, February 18th, 20th, 21st, etc., the crowd grew larger each day. Some days, up to 200 to 300 people stood packed together to watch the girl talk to the invisible person. Try to imagine dozens of people kneeling, holding their breath. The young Bernadette looking up into the air, eyes sparkling, talking to someone they couldn't see. Some burst into tears due to the pervasive, sacred feeling, a scene straight out of a movie. And then, the most illogical event: go drink from the spring. On February 25, 1858, during the 9th apparition, the lady said to Bernadette, "Go drink from the spring." But the problem was, there was no spring there. Only earth, mud, rocks, and moss. Bernadette recounted, "I looked around. There wasn't a drop of water. But she had told me to, so I dug into the ground. And then, murky drops of water seeped out. The crowd whispered, 'She's crazy. She's putting on a show.' But Bernadette continued. She drank the muddy water, washed her face, prayed. A few hours later, the water became clearer. A day later, it began to flow more strongly. By the end of that week, it became a true spring, never running dry, even to this day, 167 years later. And then, the unthinkable happened. The first sick person was healed. The first was Catherine Latapi, a woman whose arms were paralyzed after falling from a tree. On March 1, 1858, upon hearing about the water, she hobbled there. She touched her hand to the spring. Immediately, according to her account, her fingers moved again. The pain vanished. Her hand returned to normal. She returned home and that very night gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Later, the story was recorded by the press and kept in the church's investigative files. The next people, those born blind, those with tumors, those with tuberculosis, those disabled for many years. Many were confirmed to be inexplicably healed. Let me ask you honestly, if you lived back then, would you believe this was a miracle? Or would you think it was just a psychological effect, strong belief leading to self-healing? Try to answer, even only to yourself. Leading to government intervention, prohibition, and a battle of faith. Rumors of healings annoyed the local authorities. Reasons? Fear of public agitation, fear of disease spreading from the dirty spring, fear of superstition among the people. And most importantly, they thought the girl was fabricating stories. They'd interrogated Bernadette more than 20 times. Once, the judge asked, "Why do only you see her? Why did she choose you? Do you know you're disrupting the entire town?" Bernadette simply said, "I don't force anyone to believe me. I only tell what I saw." No changes, no additions or subtractions, no fear. What frustrated the investigators most was, the girl was poor, uneducated, but her testimony over many weeks never contradicted itself once. Even the smallest details remained consistent with her initial account. A shocking truth emerged on March 25, 1858. During the 16th apparition, Bernadette asked, "Who are you?" The lady replied, "I am the Immaculate Conception." The problem was, Bernadette did not understand that phrase. She was a poor, barely literate girl with no theological education. But that very phrase was a dogma proclaimed by Pope Pius IX just 4 years earlier, in 1854. A poor child, uneducated, with no access to newspapers or books, could not have invented this phrase herself. This forced priests and the church to seriously consider the matter. From 1858 to 1862, a host of experts arrived. Empirical doctors, journalists, photographers, priests, politicians, scientists. They observed strange convulsions of the sick that then spontaneously resolved, wounds healing unusually fast, tumors disappearing, the blind regaining sight within minutes. Many medical records were created. Many investigations lasted for years. A doctor at the time wrote, "If this is a fraud, it must be the most sophisticated fraud of the century." In 1862, after 4 years of investigation, the church declared, "The events at Lourdes are authentic. The woman who appeared is the Virgin Mary." The grotto was built into a sanctuary. The spring was expanded into healing baths. Every year, over 6 million people from all over the world flock to Lourdes. To this day, over 7,000 cases have been recorded as inexplicable healings, and over 70 cases have been officially recognized by the church as miracles. If you were in Lourdes now, would you dare? Touch that water? Sit quietly for a few minutes in the grotto where Bernadette knelt? Or would you still be skeptical and think it's all psychological? Keep that answer in your heart. You'll need it at the end of today's episode. Many people thought Bernadette would gain fame and glory, but no. She lived a very simple monastic life in Nevers. No boasting, she never recounted her story unless compelled to. When asked, "Why did the Virgin Mary choose you?" she replied, "If she could have found anyone poorer than me, she would have chosen them." Bernadette passed away in 1879, aged 35. The strange thing is that her body, when exhumed, was largely incorrupt and is now placed in a glass reliquary in Nevers. To date, science has put forward several hypotheses. An extremely strong placebo effect,